Have you ever wondered what a sheep's thinking? You know, we give them a hard time, but I think we tend to underestimate them a bit. It's shearing time, right? And you've spent all day droving them in from out the paddock. The dog's been barking and biting them, and you've been cursing and swearing. You get them into the yards, and then you draft them off from their loved ones for no apparent reason. Then you cram them into the shed for shearing the next day. You walk around to the catch and pen door, and you stare at them. They stare back at you. You make eye contact with one for a few seconds, until he hesitates and looks away. You think you got him bluffed, but have you? Have you really got him bluffed? Or is he patiently waiting like all the others as they silently plot their sinister revenge? This poem is called Memoirs of a Sheep. Well, the rooster crows his early call and heralds in the dawn. Geez, it must have been 12 months today since the last time I was shorn. And it's been a rather testing night, I think it must be said. 200 woolly crossbreds tightly jammed into this shed. Well, the ewes were drafted off last night and left out in the yards, but us blokes were penned inside the shed 'cause rain was on the cards. So I've had to stand up all night long in this tiny little space with another weather's daggy arse pressed hard against me face. Phew. I hate this bloody place, the weather next to me recalls. You know, the first time we were in here they removed our tails and balls. And now they bring us back each year to take away our fleece. Why can't those bloody farmers leave us poor old sheep in peace? Well, I said nothing. The big front door rolls open, and it floods the shed with light. And then in walks the dopey prick who penned us up last night. He stands outside the catch and pen, and he counts us one by one. 200 wethers stare back at the farmer's teenage son. A scrawny-looking specimen, to say the very least, with only half the intellect of your average barnyard beast. Earring hanging from his ear, tattoos up his arm, tagged and branded, like all the other creatures on this farm. 'Twas he who put us in the shed and crammed us in so tight. 'Twas he who laughed each time that bloody kelpie laid a bite. 'Twas he who kicked us in the ribs each time we doubled back, and it was he who grabbed me by the ears and give me nose a whack. So now you know his background. It should come as no surprise when I tell you that we spent all night just plotting his demise. And if the opportunity presents itself today, then we'll get that little bastard in our own sweet sheepish way. Enter now the shearers and the roustabout as well. We all stand there listening to the bullshit that they tell. They rattle off the biggest load of bollocks that you've heard, with the farmer's dopey teenage son believing every word. Enough chat, yells the farmer as he blunders through the door. It's time you had the first of those big wethers on the floor. You got to get 100 each across those boards today, so cut the yap, get to work and earn your bloody pay. Oh, and what would you like me to do? Came the question from his son. I'm sure there's lots of easy little jobs that can be done. Nah, just stay out of the flaming way, came the farmer's quick retort. 'Cause when it comes to doing hard work, you're as good as one man short. Whew. Well, we said nothing. We just stood there, all waiting to be shorn as the young bloke stared across the pens, his expression quite forlorn. And he stood there in a daydream as the shearers made a start, the sharpness of his father's words like daggers in his heart. We couldn't help but notice as a tear welled in his eye, but he wiped it back and bit his lip, determined not to cry. Then he took his anger out on us and he cursed us one by one. 200 wethers stare back at the farmer's teenage son. Just then the young man looked up and quickly turned his head as he heard the call of "Sheep-o" echo out across the shed. Was this his chance to finally prove that he was somehow skilled, by making sure those catching pens were well and truly filled? Well, he leapt into the empty pen and opened up the race, and that was when he met a wall of crossbreds face to face. Nothing stood between us and the person we despised, so now's the time to implement that plan that we'd devised. 2 big wethers rushed his legs and knocked him on his back, and that was when the rest of us decided to attack. 20 sets of sharpened hooves all trampled on his guts as I applied me trademark move, a headbutt to the nuts. And as he lay there on the floor in a crumpled moaning heap, we all piled into the catching pen till it was filled with sheep, and with him trapped beneath me in that tiny little space, I pressed my sweaty, daggy ass down firmly on his face. And the harder that he struggled, the more pressure I applied. The shearers and the roustabouts all laughed until they cried. And when they were convinced he couldn't take it any more, a shearer dragged him from the pen and sat him on the floor. He reached down for the handpiece as he kicked it into gear, and then came those classic words that we were hoping we would hear. The farmer gave his orders out in no uncertain terms. Just crutch his locks and pizzle, and then drench the prick for worms. So next time you work a mob of sheep, please treat us with respect, 'cause we're slightly more intelligent than what you might expect. And if you don't believe me, mate, then think this story through. Next time you see 200 wethers staring back at you.